Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Bob Lambert. He is not only the founder of 4 companies, the last of being Samurai Business Group, which was acquired by QCSS in 2022. His role there is business development executive. He's also a seasoned entrepreneur, strategic marketer, and sales expert who has driven millions in revenue for businesses ranging from Global 50, Fortune 500, and SMB companies. His innovative approach to business and expertise in human relationship building, direct marketing, and leadership training have cemented his reputation as a master connector and a driving force in the industry. Today, we'll delve into Bob's journey, exploring the strategies behind sales mastery and his award-winning lead generation service. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. I'll geek out a little bit about your experience and everything the knowledge that you have. So I'm really excited. And also, we're really diving into some of the frustrations that a lot of people are having around lead gen today. So I'm excited about that as well. Can we start a little bit with your journey in strategic
Sure.
business development and sales and marketing, and how it led you to where you are today with QCSS and your successful startup ventures?
Well, that's quite a journey. It's been a long one. But my first encounter out of school and out of the Navy was I had the privilege, the honor of giving a nod and working with the largest food manufacturer in the world called Nestle. And I have to tell you, foundationally for my whole career and everything else I've done, that has been a huge part and piece. I was there for a decade. I started on the marketing side with a product called Taster's Choice Coffee. And I'll explain a little bit more the intersection of marketing and sales when we get to that and what happened foundationally for my career. Had fabulous mentors. I had fabulous coaches. I had tremendous training, as you can imagine, being from the largest food manufacturer in the world, and then migrated into sales. And that's when I really got the intersect of marketing and sales called business development, and had a very successful career there for a decade. Ended up jumping into entrepreneurialism. And that was a succession of sweat equity in the first company I worked for, which was a sampling demonstrating company. And a lot of my career has been around CPG in the beginning of my career, consumer products goods, but then migrated to other areas because oftentimes CPG led the way, particularly with advertising back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I'll get into a little bit of that psychology that I learned and how I've applied that in business. But that's which led me right up to, and the iterative process too of Samurai Business Group, which we had for over 21 years, was basically I wanted to give back to young people. A lot of companies obliterated middle management. And so young people coming in, which I believe is the greatest profession in the world, you can apply it anywhere, travel from job to job as long as you master it and make more money. And guess what? The death rate, the suicide rate is lower with salespeople than it is with doctors and professionals.
Really?
So,
I didn't know that.
generally speaking, we're a happier bunch, even with all the rejection we have to go through. Yeah, and the starting a Samurai really came out of all this accumulative experience I have, and I don't want to go on and on, but I will bring up one that was inordinately successful. Was trying to get back to young people. They weren't getting the training, they weren't getting the coaching, they weren't getting the mentoring that I had the privilege of getting. And so that's what I set out to do. Guess what? They couldn't pay me. So I had to go back into what I was doing before. But what came out of that was phenomenal because we got associated with DePaul University Center for Sales Leadership. What an honor and privilege that's been. And that's a whole other story. I don't want to go down that path, but we got some academic chops too from that process. Here I am now, applying my craft, all my knowledge, my expertise to help this company really go from where they're at now to exponentially growth. So we're excited.
I love that. So with your background, both the corporate and the startups, what lessons have you learned from these experiences, and how do they inform your approach in business development and sales right now?
Corporate environment, I'll tell you, first of all, was I had the privilege of working in a corporate environment that was different than a lot of the companies, okay, philosophically and other things. So in the marketing department, when we started in there, each marketing person had to be in the field with the sales organization once a quarter, 4 times a year for a whole week. And that's when you really understood what was going on with salespeople, what's going on with buyers. And that was extremely important to understand that because that's where a lot of the action was at. Also, it's a push-pull thing. So the pull basically was understanding human psychology of individuals as far as how they buy. Okay. And they buy emotionally. All of us do. If you look at great advertising, great marketing, great messaging, also touches the heart first. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the mind. So that's where I learned a lot about that because we had to get it right. When a consumer's sitting there looking at a shelf that's at last 10 feet, as we call it, what's going to draw them towards your product? What's going to draw them? What is it that's going to compel them to pick you up versus somebody else? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a lesson there. And we had the privilege and honor going as I migrated out into the sales organization and went through an iteration of different steps. I really experienced it firsthand now. And what that part was the buyers that had to buy your product. And we had to use and implement some of the same things that I'd learned basically in marketing. They're human beings. Okay. And they operate on emotion. And basically, that emotion is what's in this for me? Okay. Why should I take and promote your product? Why should I buy more of it? And frankly, back then, it wasn't really selling per se. It wasn't until I got a corporate that I really understood the fundamentals of selling. It was a matter of they were going to buy from me. It's just how much were they going to buy? How much could I have put on display? How much would they promote it? Like it's all still selling, but the fact of the matter was it was a different kind of situation. The other thing I would share with you is product sales is a whole lot different than service sales. And we have a lot of service sales going on now. And I'll get into that a little bit too. So those were some of the things, the fundamental things that my corporate experience flooded over into my entrepreneurial spirits. And that was an iterative process all the way through.
I absolutely love that. I geek out on it as a little bit as well because when I'm helping people to scale their social media and actually get clients from social media, it's exactly what you said. It's starting with the emotion first.
Yeah.
And so many times we want to start with how intelligent we are versus and oh, I've got this amazing solution. Oh, I've got all of these degrees. Oh, I'm that brain on the stick. And then
Yep.
nobody cares. And they wonder, like, why aren't my posts getting any traction? I talked to somebody today. I've been posting every single day for 3 months and nothing's happened. And I guarantee you it's because he's posting new information without the emotional engagement.
Yeah, and this goes back to Dawn of Man. And I didn't invent anything new here, but when we get into Samurai, we really pulled in from a lot of neuroscience and behavioral science that was packed into that model because
Yeah.
it's called the buying decision model. And in that model, basically, what we understood was these are the steps people go through when they're making a buying decision, whether that's B2B or B2C. Okay. I can take every single client, every prospect through that process on something they bought personally of substance, and they pretty much mirror exactly what that is. Now, that's God given. That's been going on since the dawn of man. What we did was codify it in a simple method. And then we utilized what's been around for centuries was the Socratic method of questioning.
Yeah.
I had six kings. They taught me everything I know: what, why, where, when, how, and who. When you and unfortunately, as a society, we're yes and no. We're like playing hangman all the time. Instead of using the Socratic method, which basically, with those six words put into a question, it is doggone near impossible to answer the question with a yes or no. That really starts the discovery process, not only for the prospect or the client, but also for you. You gain a lot of intelligence with that. As I share when I lecture at University of Chicago, Northwestern, DePaul University, and I got a theater full of young people, and I have 45 minutes to teach them something. This is exactly what I teach them. This is great because it serves you well in life. It will serve you well in business. And that's ask great questions and shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Use what God gave you, 2 ears and 1 mouth, and use them
Yeah.
in those proportion.
Yeah, and it really comes down to that having empathy obviously goes deeper. The neuroscience and neuromarketing and all that goes deeper. But I've had a lot of clients that I've presented that to just say, wow, it's actually caring about people. And
Well, there's an old quote, yeah, that I use all the time. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
yeah,
And you are absolutely right, Amy. When you connect with people on a human relational level, it's amazing what can happen. Some
Yeah.
of my discovery conversations, it's an 80-20 situation. The client or the prospect's talking 80% of the time. I'm only talking 20% of the time.
Yeah. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the services that you offer in helping businesses both develop and retain customers. And can you walk us through some of the key strategies you implement to achieve the goals?
Yeah, we talked about that mystery of psychology too. That's a big one. That's the big reveal,
Mhm.
basically. When we put this together, this body of work together, it wasn't my partner and I coming up with this stuff. It was really using phenomenal science, okay, in neuroscience and behavioral science. Daniel Kahneman's work, which is Nobel Peace Prize winner for the behavioral science of economics. Robert Cialdini, which really led the way with some of the things that we were thinking about. Kahneman was the author of a big book out that was out, and we just lost a great mind. Kahneman was the peak end rule that we always use also because people remember things in peaks. Okay. So that experience that they have with you really has to be some peaks that they're going to remember and contain and also identify with you. The other thing was unbelievable, knock it out of the park book called Think Fast and Slow that he wrote. Now, it's a 500-page book, so it's a bit of heavy lifting to
Wow.
read that. Cialdini really did some things back early on, book called Influence and
Wow.
also Persuasion. And I'm a big fan of his. I read a lot, all his stuff. And Dan Ariely has also come on the scenes here more relevantly in the last couple of decades. What we do with how we approach helping people out with that is, I think you were specifically asking about what QCSS does. It all starts with the first thing anybody that comes to me with, the first hand raise is, I need more prospects.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anybody in the plant that says, oh, I've got all the business I need. I don't need any more. And if you're not always prospecting, then you're in trouble. And I work with a lot of coaches and consultants and individuals or very small companies. And here's what the problem is: they land a client and they're doing what they really love, what they're really good at. And they forget about that you got to do some business development. Guess what? It's like peaks and valleys. And it's a long way once that drops out or you lose a client or wherever the engagement ends, a long way to the next revenue peak. So we smooth that out. The teaching and coaching I give is, how do you smooth that out? How do you always have business development as part of your daily activity, your weekly activity, to keep that inertia going? So we specialize in that. Now, one of the things, the big things with lead generation, the dirty little secret, and I've known this for some time, is this. Uh, there's good and bad. Okay. And particularly with us, we've honed in. We bought a company called Sales Gig, which I had the privilege and honor of knowing and working with the founder of that in a previous business. And what they really lock into is LinkedIn. Now, a lot of folks are out there doing this, some of this stuff, but they really made it a science of how to actually get to your target. Number one, the messaging, as I told you about. How do you have compelling messaging that's going to draw somebody in? They invite you into a LinkedIn for the client or the prospect into their LinkedIn. Once they raise their hand for that, then they do what we call a very subtle drip campaign. And again, the messaging has a lot to do with drawing people in or raising their hand that they'll take a discovery conversation with you. Here's where the big problem is. They do that work and they get an appointment for you, they set it on your calendar, and then guess what? They lose all control because we estimate, and we're in a study on this, that 70 plus people that get that prospect or get that appointment have never been trained how to do anything beyond talking about themselves. And
Mhm.
so we've combined the sales mastery training with that so that now we're going to have more control. They're going to get a higher lift on their conversion rate because they've been trained.
And that's a huge need out there. For one of the number one things I talk to people is even if they get the prospects, it's I can't convert them.
And that's where we believe we'll have the edge. We know of no other lead generation company that's doing this, and especially at the sophistication of what we're doing it. Now, I told you only about one element of that. Okay. We also have handwritten cards and letters. We employ 60 people to do handwritten cards and letters. That's another way that we get to prospects. We can key on them with that. The other thing, too, is we have our own email system, proprietary email system. It's phenomenal. And we can also email into them while we're taking and calling and through LinkedIn and doing all that. And here's the interesting part about the email. If the client or the prospect clicks on it, that triggers a call from an SDR. And at that point in time, they know there's some interest. Now, they may not pick up the phone. A lot of people don't anymore, but we're getting a lot of lift, Amy, on the voice message that are left. It's amazing. We're even shocked that people return the call because of the message that's left.
It sounds like it's all just leading again back to the relationship and the connection versus I think that a lot of the other companies out there, and I know that you've seen this, they do it the opposite way. And it does focus on getting a booked call, but it's almost there's no nurturing in the beginning, and it's not caring about the individual at all. And it's just book a call. And you're like, wait a minute. We've all gotten those messages. I don't know anything about you. And maybe it's even not even targeted correctly.
That's exactly right. And when I'm experiencing this, I'm using this system. And I got to tell you, they're booking me between 8 and 12 sets a week, discovery calls, what I call discovery calls. And the first thing I start out with, Amy, is asking that person that I'm interfacing with, why'd you take my discovery call? Why'd you book a call with me? It's a little bit alarming that they don't do much homework ahead of time. And one of the other things too that we're very insistent on is helping the client do their research, do their homework up front. Okay. I spend anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes researching the person that I'm going to have a discovery call with.
Yeah.
Okay. I do that in varying ways, but I get a pretty good dossier on who it is that person is, not only from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. I look for affinity points. Are they on a board of a not-for-profit? What are some of the activities that I see either on Facebook, Instagram, or things like that they're engaged in with their family, sports, whatever it might be? Their alumni, where do they go to school? All those things in the beginning really helps you to establish some trust because you're having a conversation about them.
What are some of the common challenges sales teams are facing, and how does your program Sales Mastery address that?
Great question. And we have a fabulous VP of marketing, and he's really codified some of the things that we've been coaching, teaching, and training for a long time. So I'm going to rattle these off real quickly. And here's the things we address: struggling in prospecting effectively, develop effective sales skills, lack of consistent process, referrals are hard to come by, discovery conversations go nowhere, difficulty selling value over price, getting past no decision, which is the most common. Okay. No decision is a no, period, or if they put you off. And also peaks and valleys in my sales efforts. Okay. So we do three very basic things to address that. First of all, it's expertise. That's the learning of what to do and when, and leading to expertise in prospecting, discovery, prospect proposals, and negotiation. Okay. So we start with some basic things there. Discipline, which is a huge one. Okay. If you're left to your own devices, what are you going to do? Oh, it's sunny outside. I think I'll go out there instead of engaging in some activity that you need to do business development. So we have sales mastery cohorts where people get together, whether SMBs, individuals, and they learn from each other. We put them in breakout rooms. We have some fabulous things and subjects that we do. Also encourage them to sales discipline and engage in learning, practice, and coaching. And this is one of my big drum beats. Is there's not enough attention paid anymore to training, coaching, and practice, period. Now, if you want to be at the top of your game, you want to be a top earner in any profession or get to excellence, it takes three elements: coaching, training, and practice. Now, just imagine a gentleman that owns an MBA franchise. He's got a big bag of money, but he's got a trick he wants to say to this, to any people he wants to take on his team is, hey, guys, come play with me. I'll pay you. But guess what else? If you get to come with me, no training, practice, or coaching. How well do you think that would work? It wouldn't work. And unfortunately, people approach sales, and it's the tip of the spear. If you don't get this right in the beginning, and too many people pay too much attention to their product, their service, and all, it's the greatest thing, gift to God, and don't get the basics of how do you go out there and actually sell this? Because I tell people, it starts with an S and ends with an S, and it's called sales. If you don't have that, you have no business. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest failures today, people understanding that you need to get professional training,
Yeah.
coaching,
Yeah.
and practice. If you want to be as, I had a client we started with that was a $250,000 earner, worked with her for 3 years. She just crested $1 million in count.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It
So
takes a lot. I mean, you've got to like people, number one,
yeah,
right? And I remember a lady who was my first mentor in sales. She helped me really, I did network marketing, selling essential oils, and I've sold over $5 million in essential oils. My goal was to be like her, where she had done all of these network marketing businesses. And then she went on to coach in business and helping people succeed. But she really taught sales, is what she did. And I would binge her stuff. But she always said, and I stick to this day, it is exactly what you had just said, is facts tell, stories sell.
you bet.
Right. And
Yep.
so we all want to tell all the facts, and then you lose people.
Also, one of the things we do in the business and the buying decision model, okay, is there's apparent reasons and there is compelling reasons. Apparent reasons are more intellectual. Compelling reasons are emotional. If we know people actually buy emotionally, which one of those two do you want to be on the side of?
Yeah.
Most companies, their products and their services are selling intellectually. They're not selling to the compelling.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said it very well. Relationships matter. We're dealing with human. I tell people all the time, if you're selling to robots or aliens or something, I can't help you. But if you're selling to a human being, I got something for you.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I left out about the three things I told you are critical. The last thing is confidence. Okay. And it's the outcome of applying the proven processes over and over. Repetition builds your confidence and success. Uh, we call it a success formula. When we go in and train coach a company, we look at everybody that touches the customer. They're in business development as far as I'm concerned. So that's outside sales, inside sales, customer service, marketing. I've even been in the accounting department companies because the way our curriculum is set up, I have modules I can pull out that would be relevant to their position. Real quick story, we had a 3-year engagement with a company in MSP, and we had a young lady that took part of the training. That was the basic stuff that we train. And she took it to heart. She was in customer service, and customer service people get real close to their customers. They get a real great relationship going back and forth. We taught her Socratic question, discovery conversation, a few other things. And so she applied it one day. And guess what? She uncovered an opportunity within that company that the rep that serviced the company didn't even know about. That turned into a $300,000 piece of business. We also, the language he communicated very briefly, the rep knew it because he'd gone through the training. He was armed to the teeth when he went in there to get this thing started and get it going. Otherwise, he would have lost it or never even known about it. That young lady, as I told management, you better give a little something extra to her paycheck. And then I went to the rep, a very well paid rep, and I said, I better hear that you give her more than a Starbucks card. Yeah, because I am a big fan of, and I've seen it and I've done it, turn your company into a business development machine. One of the things that and you know this about me, I'm a big networker, I'm a big connector. And one of the failings of people, I've never been trained on networking. 80 to 90% of the people I meet have never been trained how to do networking properly. It's drive-by shooting. Oh, yeah, okay. And they're looking past you at the next person, whatever. They're not interested in creating a relationship. All they're wanting to know is what can I get from you? And this takes time. Networking really takes time and connecting with people. And I've been the recipient of some fabulous things, but you also have to be a giver. Big fan of Bob Burg's, The Go Giver. I read all the way back at the beginning when I started a company, and that was endless referrals. I've met Bob several times. I've heard him speak in person. Tremendous. Keith Ferrarzi was also a big impact on me. Never Eat Alone. That was with McKinsey, and he's got a fabulous book on that. But networking is at the heart. I firmly believe in networking. I know what it can do, but it's the long game. You've
Oh
been
yeah.
at this a long time. You built up a great network of people, and be a resource to people first. Give before you get. You've always heard that. We've heard it a million times. But how many people actually have the mindset? It's all about what I can get versus what can I give somebody. That's a great start of a relationship. Also, I will tell you, know and trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust trumps all of it. It trumps everything. You've got, for you to be able for me to open up my database to you, I got to trust you. Because guess what? I'm putting my reputation online. And Warren Buffett said it best. It could take 40 years to build a great reputation, 5 minutes to destroy it.
Yeah.
So the lesson here is be careful who you surround yourself with.
So
I can tell you a very quick story happened to me, and it was about trust. Had a gentleman that was a financial advisor. He wanted to meet somebody that was in my network. And I'd known him for a number of years, and I thought he was a pretty solid guy. And come to find out, to a banker, okay, which was a high-end banker, had high wealth people, that was obviously a good marriage. And the banker showed up a little early at this restaurant, forgot something in his car, went back out of the car. Now he knew this other guy by face. He'd seen him before and all that, but didn't know him intimately. And all of a sudden he sees him pulling up into a handicap slot. And he's not handicapped.
oh wow.
I got a call from the banker after that lunch telling me about this. You know what the first phone call was I made? It was back to that financial advisor. I took him to the woodshed and I said, this is my reputation, and you pull that stunt, people watch. I tell people all the time, dress for success even when you're out shopping, for God's sakes, okay? You don't have to dress up to the nines, but at least make yourself presentable, because you don't know who you're going to meet and you don't know who knows you.
Yeah. 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 And back to the authenticity and the character, all of that is so dang important. And yeah, and I think that in this day and age, it's really easy to overlook that, especially online, things online, and because we don't see people's expressions. You post something that might not go over so well, and you don't see expressions, doesn't mean they're not happening.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I've got my thoughts on all of this and AI and some other things. We don't have time for that today, but my personal philosophy about this is be very aware of what is going on and how you implement some of these strategies. I'm sure that's part of your coaching. Stick to stuff that is not controversial, unless you want to be bold. And I've done that
Yeah.
several times.
Yeah.
And I've gotten stuff in people's face to get a reaction, get something, and all of a sudden it wakes them up. I was at a networking thing online the other day, and it's a typical thing you get these breakout rooms and everything like that. And it was about elevator pitches. And so I started out with one that I always, do you have all the business you want and need? And everybody on the screen went, that's one of the best starts I've ever heard. It's basically getting to what I'm about, right? I'm going to help you get to where you want to go in a multiplicity of ways, because of not only my sales background and business development. I started coining business development back in the 80s, mid 80s. And that was because I had a marketing agency, okay? Marketing acceleration. And one of the privileges we had, Amy, and you're young enough to understand, and maybe I told you the story, but my agency were the ones that concepted Nerds Candy. I can't believe that stuff is on the shelf still.
I love
And
it
one of the things,
to this day.
I still on the shelf. And one of the things that we did about that, talking about that, because of my B2C training, was we're dealing with kids, and we didn't have millions of dollar budget to be on air and Saturday morning TV and all that. So we had to do it on package, and we had a fabulous sales organization that was able to get the distribution. But here's the thing. They only got that because they had relationships, deep relationships with those buyers that trusted them. Okay. As far as the product goes, the candy product, we made it sweet for them because it was first concept of 2 different flavors in a package. And underneath, we launched it off with a ability to win a prize. So every package had underneath the little flap, one flap or the other, had a prize. And then you structured back then pyramid of prizes. Top prize back then was a full-blown Yamaha sound system. And that was a big deal back then. But we took a page out of Cracker Jacks, right? Every box had a little tchotchke prize. And that's exactly what we did. And the kids went nuts. And then we created a little Nerds doll, taking it from Cabbage Patch, and we gave it a little birth certificate in his pouch. Kids went nuts for that. But it was amazing, the psychology of that with these children. Girls were different than boys. They knew to the penny what that candy, the value of the candy. It was amazing. and yeah, and another out of the park home run we did is we had the privilege and honor of creating Muhammad Ali's worldwide fan club. What a phenomenal experience that was. The marketing that I've done, the business development, and the combining of that, because one of the things I lecture clients on, and it was mainly marketing people we were selling to in big fortune companies, was the fact that you got to get your sales organization to buy into this. And the only way that happens is if you bring them into the conversation. Okay. Because again, they have the buyer's ear, the buyer's voice. And when they do that, I'm saying you don't have to take everything, but when you do that, I can guarantee you it's going to be a success because the
Yeah.
sales organizations bought into it, they had a voice in it, and they're going to make it happen. And I said, I can tell you what, it will be less than 50% successful if you don't do it. We
Okay.
doubled the size of the entire company in 13 months with the launch of that one product.
Wow. It's amazing. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it. I believe it. You did
Yeah.
really well. Yeah.
We probably the most fun I've ever had in my life, seriously, in my professional career, was when we would do focus groups with kids. Now, these were tweens, most of them that bought that candy, because what happens with candy, particularly that kind of candy, was the fact that most of the palates of young people are not very sophisticated, okay, not very developed. So
Yeah.
when you deliver a strong burst flavor, well, that really comes across as something great. But we don't have the time to tell you about all the other cool stuff that we did when I was in the agency business.
Yeah, definitely. So I do want to ask you a little bit around cultivating relationships because we've talked a little bit about the things that we don't want to do, the things we want to avoid, right? And I think that this is probably one of the things that a lot of business owners struggle with. Maybe they've just not had that background. And especially you're talking about C-suite and building relationships with C-suite. Now, I've got that background in studying who they are and how we're going to connect and all of this and how we get the warm connection. But as a master connector yourself and having all of this experience in really cultivating strong relationships, what are some leading practices in cultivating these relationships for long term?
Again, I get a lot of professional folks that say, I'm not in sales. Well, I'm a engineer, I'm a CPA, I'm this and that. We've had to change the language. Frankly, business development now is the word that translates into sales. So I call it business professional, whatever you want to call it, training and development, because that's what it is. It's unfortunate that sales has gotten this very bad vibe around it, but that's what it is. So business development is a softer way of saying that. You're hard pressed to even find somebody that's got sales in their card today because of the reaction you get. So I would say that, like we said, I have found that the professionals that say that they're not salespeople are some of the best and really take this to what we coach and train and teach, because we're not teaching them how to sell people. It's not salesy. People love to buy what they want and need. They hate to be sold. Every single one of those people said absolutely the same thing. I said, then how about if you could take and have a discovery conversation with a friend of how you can help them? Everybody wants help.
Yeah.
And also, to your point, empathy, understanding what their needs are. Some of those folks are very high CNS on a DISC profile, so they've got the empathy part, like you said, is hard for them. They're not real relational kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you something. I had an interim CFO that came to work for me. He broke out in hives when he had to go to a networking meeting. He would come home and it would exhaust him for a day. By the time he went through the program, he couldn't wait to go to do networking meetings. One day I'm driving, I'm literally on an expressway, and he calls me up. His name was Tony. And it was about 4 or 5 months in. And he calls me up and he's all excited. He goes, Bob, you ain't gonna believe this. You ain't gonna believe it. And I thought, oh my God, did you have an accident or something? I was ready to pull off the road. And he said, you ain't gonna believe this stuff really works. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, no, this really works. And he was so excited because he just came out of a meeting. He applied some of the stuff that we shared with him in his own way, because we're not pedantic about how you do this. Okay. You put your fingerprint on it, whatever works for you, but the model works if you let it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he started telling me about the whole thing. And he said, now you see what I mean? It really works. And I said, I know, Tony, I was just waiting for you to get it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he did. He got it big time. And in watching people's face, Amy, that lights me up for people that can take and do something that they never thought they could do. And he's a great example of it.
Yeah. I love
Phenomenal.
that. I love that. So if there are business owners that are listening right now and they're looking to enhance their sales and customer care strategies, what would you say to them, especially in how competitive it is right now?
I got some thoughts on it. And this is probably going to be a pretty cavalier statement. I never worried about competition. Now, I'm not naive. I educated myself. I did my homework, but I always looked at competition. They were in my rearview mirror. The other strategy too that a lot of people really need to grab a hold of is blue ocean revised. How do you get from red ocean, the swimming sea of sharks and everything like that, into a blue ocean where the competitive nature is different? Also, the value and the ROI that you're getting, because that's really at the end of the game, that's what their people are looking for. What value is this going to be to me? Okay. And what return can I expect? What outcome can I expect? You got to get that right. And you also, as I share with people, start with this in mind also. What are the real true wants and needs of your for people to have your service? Best way to start is if you got a client base already, is to go back to your client. I am absolutely shocked how many people go back to their clients and see how they're doing. Ask the questions. Is there something else we could be doing better? What would that be? And it's very simple to do that. But what you then find out is if everything's good, okay, they like what you're doing, they want more of it, then you have to say to them, I ask the question, why? There's a lot of people you could buy the service from. Why did you pick me? And that is a message that will go across all of your stuff is those reasons out of the mouths of your clients that you can use in messaging because there's other people want the same stuff. This isn't rocket science. We make this too complicated. And so I start with that. Let's talk to your customers. I'm a big fan of QBRs, quarterly business reviews.
Mm-hmm.
If not quarterly, then twice a year. You got to have your finger in the pulse. When do you want to know that they're getting ready to leave you, now or when the screen door slams?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to get ahead of it. So
Yeah, you do.
does that help?
No, I think that's really great. Yeah. It definitely touched on
And I would share also invest with professionals that know what they're doing. There's a lot of people out there hawking services today that I'm sitting there, I'm glazing over and going, you got to be kidding me. You got about a minute's worth of business acumen and you're selling this stuff. You got to be
Yeah.
kidding me. Personal referrals, people that have worked with somebody before, check people out. Too few people check out references, all this stuff. And so I'm a big proponent of that. Get good references, get good testimonials, have the clients tell you why they're using you. What's their why for you working with you? Okay. The other thing we boil it down to, who are the clients you work with the best? What are the elements or the personal things or whatever it is of people you work with the best? I know you've got them. I have them that I love working with them. They're like family. Okay. And what are those reasons? Why? Why do they love working with me? And why do I love working with them? Your life's going to be a whole lot happier. Once I started shedding all of the clients that were making my life miserable, I actually have fired clients, or I just choose not to work with them right off the bat.
Yeah.
And your life is a whole much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. That chemistry is so important. I have a client that he's always telling me, I'm your ideal client. I'm your ideal client. He's my biggest fan too, right? And I'm like, you absolutely are my ideal client, and I can ask you anything. Yeah. And
Yep.
it's those that you want more of. So definitely.
Yeah.
What's your truth that's gotten you this far in your journey, do you think?
I am so thankful that you put this question on there because everybody's got their own truth, okay? And whatever they believe in. But I'm going to be very bold about it. My faith is my truth, okay? And it's the foundation. It's my foundation. It has been for many years. I was without it for many years, and then I got it. The Bible is my guide of living life, everything. It's in there. And that's the wisdom of the ages and knowledge about life. Second thing would be courage to do the right thing. It takes courage to do the right thing. And I think there's unfortunately too many folks that aren't courageous to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's at going to be personal loss or something else, but do the right thing at the end of the day. Conviction to persevere. The book by Duckworth, anyway, I'm forgetting her name right now, was Grit. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to tell you something. That book talked really absolutely with all the millionaires and successful people. That was the one element she picked out of all of that is that they had grit. Grit is basically perseverance. Okay. Resilience to get through all the tough spots. And as well as I do, and we've had this conversation, that got you through a lot of tough stuff. Okay. And it's got me through a lot of tough stuff. The other thing too is to serve others and also be humble. That's one of the things I had to do. One of my biggest things I had to overcome was I'm all that in a bag of chips. That I had to understand that I had humility and belief and confidence in a higher power that has a plan for your life. I teach and coach this all the time, the ABCs. I have this in my coaching. I refresh all the time with my clients. And that is basically, what is it that you can do that isn't going to cost you anything? Okay. Will make a big difference and you have a choice in. Okay. And those three things, basically, that you have a choice because you can't control everything else, is your attitude, your behavior, and your commitment. The
Yeah.
ABCs. Yeah.
One last question. If you were able
Yep.
to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out, what would it be?
This was a tough one because I had three of them that were great. In life, career, and business, community, family, ask great questions and shut up and listen. God gave you two ears and one mouth. Use those in proportion. I said it before. The other thing I also mentioned, get great coaches and mentors right from the beginning. Okay. That's been the most valuable thing consistently for me, is getting outside opinions and giving those people permission to correct you, to kick your ass, whatever that has to be. You got to expand yourself. You got to be open up to ideas and things like that. And then this is when I coach it. I have people come to me all the time, Bob, you've started companies, you did all this. What's the wisdom that you can give to me? Okay. And I share this. Generally avoid family members and friends. Okay. They're well intentioned. However, familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
Now, I work with family businesses, and it's probably some of the most dysfunctional things I've ever been in. But when they get it right, and I've been with some companies that really get it right, it's phenomenal
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that can go pretty deep with family businesses
Yeah.
versus employees or whatever the case might be. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Hopefully people found that to be a little bit of gray hair wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob, so much for coming on and sharing your expertise today.
Right. Thank you, Amy. I really this is an honor and a privilege to be
Yeah.
able to share this. And yeah, great questions, by the way. These are fabulous.
If there are people that are listening that would love to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Best way to contact me is it's r.lambert at QCSSinc.com or call me at 847-922-1498. Text me, and if you text me, reference what it's about or how you know somebody that I know or whatever. I answer calls, I answer emails as long as I know who it is and why they're doing it.
Perfect. And I'll put your website link down below. Thank you again so much for coming on today. And if you want more information about today's podcast and upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.